what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Life Hair Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Life Hair Show, we help people make more, work less, and create lives and businesses they love. I am joined by my Polish co-host, Polish Peter.
So guess what we're doing today?
What?
We're going.
Yes. Yes, we are, man. We are. So listen, you guys.
How was that sound effect, by the way?
It was good.
good.
It was good. It didn't. I couldn't even tell it had a Polish accent on it either.
There we go.
So listen, we are talking with Eric Swahn today. He's a motorcycle racer. Now, you might be thinking like, well, I don't race motorcycles. How in the world is this relevant for me? And let me tell you, my head was like going nuts as he was talking throughout this interview because there's so many applications and parallels to life, to business, to any endeavor that you want to pursue like that. I thought it was awesome. And yeah, there's a step of interpretation here because like, it's not, you're probably not a motorcycle. Maybe you are a motorcycle racer, but the lessons here are super powerful.
Yeah. So when you're listening to this particular podcast, I want you to listen beyond and how you can apply this. We talked about fear, like how do you go out of the comfort zone? How you get through that fear? Yeah. Because that's a huge thing for a lot of people, whether you're a motorcycle racer or not. How do you focus? Because think about it, when you're on that bike, you got to be focused 100%. Yep. So these are some really good lessons. And then towards the end of the episode, me and Bojo are going to debrief this and dive into some of the lessons that we got out of this particular podcast for ourselves as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. You guys are going to love it too. Let's go right now to our interview with Eric Swahn. Eric, what's up, man? Great seeing you again, dude. Welcome to Life Hair Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Dude, it's gonna be awesome. Like, so Peter, I met Eric at the Superbike school, where we were at a track in Virginia, and we were sitting down eating lunch, and I'm just hearing about his story and what he's doing, and I'm like, dude, we got to get this guy on the show. Like, he's super cool, has an awesome kind of story, and we're gonna tie some lessons that he's learned from motorcycle racing into this, and some things he's doing business wise. Eric, tell the audience a little bit about yourself here, man.
Yeah, so my name is Eric Swahn. I'm 30 years old, born in '92, Michigan, Metro Detroit area all my life. I'm in Sterling Heights right now. And
are you serious?
Yeah, we're probably not
Dude,
too
this
far
is the
away.
guy I told you about. Remember, I told you I met a guy from there.
Bloomfield Hills.
Oh, it's like we could have done this in person.
Yeah. Well, come on over. Stop it right now. Let's come over here.
All right, let's go. But maybe I'll get you for dinner or something. We'll have meet up sometime.
Sounds good.
But I'm a motorcycle racer. I'm a rider. I've been riding for 16 years, been racing for 11 or so. I got into motorcycle road racing, so dragging your knee, going around the corners, 150, 160 miles an hour. Also mountain bike racing, go-kart racing, champion in all three of those. And I also do foot races, and I was on the swim team in like middle school, if that counts. But yeah, I'm a Tough Mudder. Done about 4 Tough Mudders, even though those aren't really races or more events. But I just love trying to push your limits and see how much you can do. My heart is really in motorsports. And for the last couple of years, I've worked for 10 different organizations as a racetrack marshal. So a corner worker, a flagging and communication at the side of the track, either with cars or with motorcycles. I do both professional and amateur. Yeah, so I'm just, I love the sport.
What? So is this just an addiction to speed here? Is this the, or is it just beating people and making people look bad? Like, which one is it?
I just love being around the track community. Beating people is great. Being able to pass someone is awesome, but there's always going to be somebody faster than you. I'm not disillusioned. I'm never going to be a MotoGP rider. I just love participating in it at the level that I can. And, I think I have the ability to be a high-level coach, which I'm now a coach for 3 different organizations. One of them still pending. We'll see about that hopefully this week. And then, I'll be at the track for the next 4 weekends in a row. Tomorrow I'm leaving for Wisconsin for the Bagger Racing League. Never worked for them before, so it's a new one to add to the list. And then I'm going to be going to New Jersey for Moto America. And then after that is CCS, I think it's Black Hawk Farms. That's an amateur race for motorcycles. And then the following one would be Barber, I think the finale for Moto America.
Okay. Yeah, wow. Gotcha, man. Dude. So, all right, I got to ask you, man. So when you pass somebody, are you like, do you have it like something you're like, see ya, sucker? Like, do you have like, is there anything that goes through your head, or you're just like, eat dust?
Sometimes if you know the person, you're like, haha, you say like a little something in your head, like, or most of the time, everybody's at such a different level. Like there's there's only a few people who are actually expert racers, and there's only a few people who are like novice racers, and then most of the guys are like track day, advanced pace, or maybe they just moved up for intermediate, so they're in advanced today, but it's their first day in advance. So there's a huge skill level gap, and someone could be on a Aprilia 1100cc bike, and I'm over here on a 600, and the next guy is on a 300, but we're all in the same advanced group. That's not a problem, but it makes for different things. Because like I was at Granton on Sunday doing a track day of my own, and man, I was battling at the end of the day with the 1000s. I was like, this guy's just killing me on the straightaway, and I'm getting him, and he's holding me up in the corners, so I can make a couple passes on him, and then he get by me on the straightaway. And then after enough time of doing that, I gapped him enough that he couldn't get me on the straightaway anymore, and that felt good. I was like, yeah, he can't get me.
See ya. Yeah.
So how do you deal with someone like Vojo who's on a tricycle going around the track?
You just got to watch out and try to make a nice outside pass. That's always satisfying when you go 6 feet around them on the outside.
That's awesome. Well, and so, one of the things I think is awesome, man, is you've taken clearly what is your passion, like, and now you're turning it into like your profession. Talk to us about that. Like some of the things you're doing, like how have you been able to tie, because this is the thing, like everybody, I think at some level, it's their dream to do what they love. Right. And so how did you start to make this a reality?
Yeah. So it's funny. Just yesterday, someone was giving me shit about not having a real job. I was like, I didn't say it. I just like walked away, but I was thinking, should I apologize for pursuing my passion and you didn't, and you have a normal 9-to-5 job? I don't think I should be ashamed of that. I'm at the track almost every weekend this year and past years, and I am not rich. Like, it takes a lot to do these events. Sometimes it's a volunteer position and there's no pay, and the track is 12 hours away. How much do you want to participate in this sport to get your foot another step into the door, to meet new people, to like shake some hands? Now, the next 4 events I'm doing, they're all paid flag marshal positions. I'm not really in a position to just volunteer my time every weekend.
Right.
So there's a lot of that goes on, but yeah, I mean, if there's something you want to do, whether it's crossword puzzles or motorcycle racing, like, just go down that road a little bit more. I think my life has been changing since I started this podcast, because you start talking about things you really want after an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever the time limit is. And, I did a track marshal weekend at Wisconsin and Road America. And I was on the email blast for the MSF course. And that's how I kind of got into motorcycle coaching, for getting people their license, riding on the street. And that got me into other sorts of coaching. And it just kind of snowballs from there if you keep going down that road.
And so what I'm hearing is, like, the more you do it, which you love doing anyway, the more opportunities it leads to, the more things present themselves, the more people you meet, relationships you form. And then when something comes up, so now what you're doing is like, you're doing what you love, but now I'm also hearing you're helping other people experience the thrill of motorcycle riding and even racing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so I was really happy, and I guess I could talk about it. I won't say anybody's names, but I got 2 great reviews, unsolicited. I never asked for any reviews, but they reached out to me on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, and left me like a huge, great review. I'm like, one was from MSF, from Motorcycle Safety Foundation, so somebody learning how to ride a motorcycle for the first time. The other one was from STT, my first coaching day I did for them as a staff member. One guy, he said, you improved my riding night and day in 30 minutes, more than any other coach has. I was like, that's great awesome, review, man. Like, this is awesome. And so, yeah, it's really cool to see these, like, little birds learn how to fly or get better. There's a whole bunch of people. I was doing the novice group 1 class, and there's a whole bunch of people not even moving their butt a millimeter. I'm like, you gotta move your butt off the seat. Like, it seems so obvious, but you think you're hanging off so much, then you see the pictures and you're like, oh no, that's not good. Right?
Dude, I see those every time I go out to the track. I'm like,
what am I know doing? Somebody who needs a coach.
What am I doing? Right. And so you find joy in helping other people do that.
I do. It's awesome. I would love to be out there racing every weekend myself, but the funds aren't there. So this is something that I can do and give back in the meantime. And I enjoy coaching. I enjoy helping people get better. If people don't get better, they plateau, and maybe they're like, you know what, I'm just going to take the car out to dinner tonight. I don't really want to have to worry with the bike. I'm kind of nervous about riding. I went by that semi truck and it scared me last time just because of the wind or whatever. So if people aren't learning these things, sometimes they stop riding, or they think that, oh, I'm never going to get to that level. Like, look at all those trophies. I can never do that. Well, I just started out just like everybody else. And I think you can really progress if you want to. Not everybody wants to be that proficient. They just want to be able to, get home after a long day of work. Maybe it's raining outside. So everybody has their different levels where they want to be.
So I got a question for you, because you're talking about progression. You started at, quote unquote, on a tricycle, right? And now you're riding on this rocket, right? I mean, you're going down. Give me an idea, like going straight away on the track, how fast can you go?
That depends on the track, but I'd say most 600s are in the 150, 160 range. I think Grattan maybe 140, like the high 140s. Okay. Depends on, a lot of things.
Yeah, and you're cutting corners too like crazy probably, right?
Oh, yeah, well over 100.
Dude, so 100 miles an hour cutting a corner. So what have you learned throughout this whole experience that allows you to progress to the next level, you think? What's the things?
There's a lot of things called survival reactions. So you always have these mental blocks in place. Like, imagine, here's a good example. Grattan Raceway has a lot of sealer strips to, seal out the pavement from cracks and make it a little bit more smooth. Well, those sealer strips make it very slippery, but everybody gets it in their head that when they go over these sealer strips that they're going to crash, because it kind of makes the front tire squirm a little bit. It's not so comfortable. And what I've learned and what people have told me about it is that once the sealer strip is extremely small, it might be 2 or 3 inches wide. So most of the time you cross it very quickly and you're already on good pavement again. But if you panic and you think, oh no, I'm going to crash, so you let off the throttle, and it's an already overloaded front tire from being on that strip, and now you transfer all the way to that front tire, a lot of times that can be a crash because you've just put the bike in a zone where it doesn't want to be. And now if you were to stay on the throttle, maybe not accelerate more, just maintain or slowly continue what you're doing, a lot of times the suspension's in the right working mode, you're already over the strip anyway, and the tire's on good pavement, so you don't really have to worry about it. And so people get it in their heads that, oh no, I'm scared, that means I need to let off. Well, a lot of times you just screwed up the bike more from doing that. So it's overcoming these things where I'm scared, I think I should go slower. But in motorcycle racing and riding on the street, there's things that are counterintuitive, like counterweight, counter steering, and they're big things that really help you ride a bike.
Dude, let's just unpack that, Peter, because I know you're waiting to you're chomping at the bit to talk about the whole like the things, the fear and that aspect. So I'll let you go to that, man.
No, because here's the thing. One of the couple of things that I'm hearing from that is, one is knowledge is actually very important, to have that knowledge behind it. Because if you don't know what you're going after, like you talked about that strip, right? Just knowing that one thing can make a difference as far as how you're riding. And the bigger aspect is the mental, the fear, the worry, and all that kind of stuff. So let's unpack that, because knowledge, we can't really talk much about knowledge because it's going to depend on what people are doing with what in their business, right? But fear, that worry, how you deal with that, how you break through that, how you do that.
So I have had a really bad crash. I would say nearly life-threatening at the same racetrack I just came back from. So the first couple of times I went around the track again after that crash, I was kind of looking at the crash spot every lap. I'm like, okay, you can't be staring at that the whole time. You look where you want to go. And so it took a couple of laps to get that out of my head. But if you have the right philosophy with how you use the bike, you're not overloading the tires. It's all very predictable. Like, I can do a track day at 90% of my pace, and with almost certainty say I'm never going to crash at that pace, because it's within my limits and it's within what the bike is capable of, the traction, the power delivery, the brakes, everything that's involved. So once you kind of understand how the bike wants to get around a corner, it's no longer this scary, dangerous thing. Like, yes, you can get hurt, but if you do something wrong, if you ask too much of the tires of physics, you'll make mistakes, or even of yourself. There's a lot of times where the bike can do it just fine. It's the nut behind the handlebars that always makes the wrong decisions and makes the mistakes. So it's really a sport where I tell myself all the time when I put my helmet on, it's like, no mistakes. You just have to be perfect. Like you can't make any mistakes. And it's hard to do that. Like it's almost never going to happen. You always maybe go wide a foot or two and you bring it back and no one noticed. It wasn't a major mistake, but there are those big ones where you high side, and instead of high siding into a field, crashing into a just empty field, there happened to be a guardrail there. Well, that's a mistake you can't make.
Listen, I love that you're talking about that. And my question to you is this. I mean, you're on a track. I mean, and you understand the bike, you understand the physics, you understand a lot of the knowledge around it, right? As you're racing and you're going at these insane speeds and you have people going by in front of you, around them and all that kind of stuff. And you guys, I've seen like some of the pictures, like you guys are like literally this close next to each other kind of sometimes, right? What is going through your head? What's the mental conversation that's going on in your head in those moments so you don't crash, so you don't get, scared or whatever it might be?
Yeah, it's really just got to hit your marks. There's a huge amount of trust that's involved with this. A lot of safety requirements and, making sure everything's safety wired so parts don't fall off your bike. But yeah, when you're going up and you're passing someone, if it's someone that you are probably going to be battling with for the next couple of corners, you have to leave them room to race. Like you have to allow them enough space available to make their maneuvers. You can't run them off the road. It's something that requires a lot of, like I said, respect and commitment, because you might be going around the outside of them at 80 miles an hour. And at some point, maybe it's a left-right situation. You have to understand that they're going to be coming right back over. So then you have to be visible enough to them, show them a wheel in those situations to be able to get in front of them just enough so they see you. And like, you don't want to spook them. So there's a right time to make a pass. You don't want to do it like a fraction before the apex, because that'll typically have to stand people up, if you're passing on the inside. So there's a lot of etiquette to it. And we take it seriously.
Yeah. So among all those things that you just said, one thing I'm hearing is that you are not in your head when you're on that bike. You're paying attention to the surroundings, to the other people around that. You're like in the moment kind of a thing, just being in the moment. Am I right?
Yeah, it's so much focus. You can't be thinking about anything else. You can't think about your bills, your taxes, the podcast. It's like, okay, what's going on in front of me? And I love it that there's a whole bunch of racing organizations or schools, I should say, that tape up your speedometer. So when people say, well, how fast you go? I'm like, there's duct tape over my speedometer. I don't actually know how fast I went. I don't have a GPS lap timer I'm running today. So fast, I don't know, 6-gear pin for 30 seconds, it feels like, So the top speed and what's going on your instrument cluster is irrelevant. It's like, how are you getting around somebody? Are you leaving them enough space? I'm fortunate enough to be able to be passing most people. I might only get passed once or twice in a session by like the fastest guys, and I'm trying to keep them in my sights for as long as possible till they start to fade away in the distance. But it's pretty cool to be able to pass someone and make it stick and just get right by and then look at the next person. I think a lot of mentality for new track riders is like, okay, they came out of novice, which has really strict passing rules. Intermediate's a little bit more lax. Advanced, it was so nice to get out and advanced again and just do my own passes. Like, you can pass people close. It's not rude. It's like they're used to it now. And you're getting past, you're like, I'm hearing this guy come up my rear. He's right there. I have earplugs in and a helmet and all this stuff, but you can still hear him right behind you. And you're like, okay, he just tried to show me a wheel the last 3 corners. I think he really wants to get by, but still trying to fight for the position, even though it's a track day. He's coming up along my inside. I'm just letting off the brake a little bit more so he doesn't have the corner. He gives it to me. And then he just zooms by on the straightaway, like, oh, okay, there he goes.
So, it's interesting, man. You mentioned covering the speedometer, and like when I went to the superbike school on that BMW 1000, that thing cooks, man. And I was like, I opened that thing up, and I was just holding on. And I remember looking down, I was like, man, I'm wondering how fast I'm going. And then it struck me like, okay, this is not where you're supposed to be focusing. You should be looking at the track. You should not be looking at your gauges. And that's why they do it. And it was, I wanted to know out of curiosity, but it absolutely was the wrong thing to focus on. It's kind of, it's a valuable lesson, man. I think like where you focus, like it's such an important thing. So when you ride now, man, we talked about progression, and I want to talk about like your comfort level, because I think whether we're talking motorcycle racing, whether we're talking business, people kind of have a comfort level with, what they're used to. And so when you start going faster on a motorcycle, or you start like a new business venture or something that's foreign to you, like, how do you handle that? Like, how do you deal? And do you have any fear about pushing your limits? I mean, you go a little bit hot into a corner, you're like, okay, well, here we go. Like, how do you handle that?
Yeah, so I definitely have fears and limits, and I don't want to crash the bike. Every time I want to come home with a shiny bike, I don't have the money to keep repairing my bike from scratch or like build it up from the frame up. That's expensive. And, the more you do that, the less you're going to be out there because you're fixing your bike, or maybe it's not even ready to go. So yeah, there's definitely limits. I know that I can be pushing harder and probably make up another second or two or three, even just pushing harder on the brakes at certain tracks, because I remember when I was racing, almost every corner, I would try to get the rear tire off the ground just a little bit, but not like a top rack style where he's 2 feet off the ground. But yeah, that was kind of my style, is just a little bit off. So I knew I'm at max braking, try to hold it there, and I'm not quite there yet. I'm not pushing the envelope. I mean, it's kind of hard to do that all the time at even an advanced track day, because you can't push for a whole lap. You'll still be coming up to people every couple corners. That might be a slower pace. So it's hard to do your full pace unless you're at a racer practice or a race event. You got a morning practice, and maybe a Friday would be a good place to do that. But I just need more track time. So I've been off the bike and off of motorcycle racing for a couple of years with my injuries, and getting into other things like the mountain bike racing and the karting. So with more seat time comes more speed. So just doing it more often will definitely bring it back a lot quicker. So the first couple of track days I did this year, I was not at full pace. I even noticed I wasn't pushing hard enough to keep the heat, keep the PSI where I wanted it with my tires. So I was having to play with that. I'm like, man, I'm just not going fast enough, because it's a huge difference from doing supermoto track days to doing sport bike track days. You're going 100 miles an hour faster at some of these places. So the speed differences are massive, and going from, slower speeds to bigger speeds takes you a little bit to come up to speed. And I think that's normal. It's every time you go out, you go a little bit quicker. And it's just, yeah, I'm not going to 100% like some guys are. I'm not at that level. I don't have that 30 weekends a year seat time comfortability, what they call bike bonding. Are you completely in tune with all the things that your bike can do? It takes a long time to feel that comfortable.
Dude, well, and just for the people who are listening and not watching, as Eric is saying this, I'm looking at a wall full of trophies and plaques. So you've had your share, man. Well, dude, that's fascinating though, because think about it. What I'm hearing is like the way to progress is just to do it more, like to get seat time, to be on the track, to continually push yourself and get yourself out there. How does that balance though with somebody who like has bad habits, and the seat time just reinforces those bad habits? How do you get around that and to make sure you're not hurting yourself rather than helping yourself?
Yeah, so I would say get some coaching. I mean, I'm biased now because I'm a coach, but honestly, if you never learn from people who are like 5 to 10 years ahead of you, or even just a small amount ahead of you, you'll never get better. I was always a huge advocate of go through the track day system, novice, intermediate, get to advanced as soon as possible, because intermediate can kind of be a little dangerous, I think. Not to put any shade on any of the organizations. It's just there's a huge skill difference. So I'm like, I want to be with the faster guys because it's safer. And I can learn from them. You can be right behind them as they pass you for a couple of seconds at least, and see what they're doing. And then get to novice racing, get to expert racing, so you can see what the best guys are doing, and you will immediately drop time. And so I just thought that was always so helpful as far as like, I never needed a ton of coaching because I was always watching the racers directly in front of me and seeing what they're doing. That's the best coaching there is, because they're leaving it all on the table. And it's great to watch it. I mean, when can you ever get that up close feedback? It's
Dude,
great.
Wow, man, that just gave me that gave me an aha moment right there, because most people are going to get past and be like, crap, I suck. I'm slow. This is embarrassing. And you're like, dude, I'm getting free coaching right now. I'm just checking out what this cat's doing. Yeah. And like so getting past, you're learning.
There's modeling going on.
Yeah.
That means like, okay, he just passed me like 15 miles an hour into that corner, whatever it was. I'm like, wow, I need to really step it up here. I remember David Gray, he was kind of my coach and my mentor for a long time. We just happened to be at the track at the same time. He was the tire guy. We'd always talk. And a lot of times we even rode together to and from the racetracks. And so he's like, man, you really got to step up your game in this one corner. I'm like, you're not even close to the pace there. And so I was like, I didn't even know. Like, thanks for telling me. I thought I was killing it through there. He's like, no, you got to go way faster. And so dude, that help is so, it's pivotal. I mean, it's so helpful. And I've noticed in the last couple of events, the last one in particular, Sunday, I think my lines are good. I know I can go a little bit quicker in each corner, push the tires a little harder, but I'm struggling with my fitness. I haven't been doing a ton of cycling this year or running. I've been doing all this different flag marshal stuff and coaching. So it takes up, 25 weekends a year or so far. And so I need to really get more leg strength and cardio, because when it's 83 degrees out, you're in a full leather suit, your bike's a couple 100 degrees, it's hot out there. You're sweating before you even throw your leg over the bike. So I got to get my cardio and my leg strength higher. And I think that will actually help me ride the bike better, get your core better too, your torso. And if you can do the motions on the bike with no effort, you can focus all your energies on actually where you put the bike, how you're riding, instead of like, oh, I can barely like do this because it's so hard. If you can barely, sustain your muscles and where you put your weight, it's going to be way harder than if you're not thinking about that.
Dude, that's interesting. It also reminds me of kind of a little bit of like almost like cross training. It sounds like. Yeah. Like, so are you doing things off of the motorcycle to improve your riding?
Oh, all the time. I need to be doing way more mountain biking and road cycling. In the past couple of years, I've normally done 1,000 miles a year between biking and running. This year I'm pretty low, but I have been doing and increasing the amount of hot yoga I do. I did one yesterday. I did one today. They're usually 90 minutes. Of 105 degrees, and it's just.
Why would you need to do hot yoga?
It's really good for injury prevention, and I think it's great to be heat acclimated, because when it's 83 degrees out there, I'm suffering less than the next guy who's not used to that heat. So it kind of makes you used to it, I think, and it's great stretching. Like I never get such a good stretch as I do when I do yoga.
Man, so yesterday, dude, it was like 86, 87. I was just, I was soaked. I was pouring sweat. I was drinking Pedialytes and Gatorades, I actually sat out a few sessions because I'm like, I don't feel good, man. I'm too hot.
You do look skinnier today,
dude. I feel like I'm still like red, like I'm still there. So that's totally true. So what do? Like, you just kind of find you feel like some complementary. And the reason I'm asking this also from the business perspective, like, to be good in business, you have to learn multiple things. And so what you're doing is like, hey, here's what I want to get good at. Now I'm looking at other things that can help me improve. Like, so what are some of the other things you do? Like, how does like mountain biking and that, how does that help?
Yeah, so mountain biking is great because you don't have to spend any money on gas, even if you had a dirt bike. It's almost free once you got the machine. I mean, there's might be some small maintenance with tires and tubes and things like that, but for the most part, it's cheap and or free once you got the machine. So it's very similar. You're sliding the front, you're sliding the rear when you get fast. You're zipping in and out through trees. Like, it's I would say sometimes it's more dangerous than motorcycle racing, because there's not a whole bunch of trees you normally hit when you're motorcycle racing, but you're clipping handlebars and sometimes hitting your hands and elbows on the trees. It's like Man, it's tight. So I always wear like a full face when I do that. I wear more gear on my bicycle than most people probably wear on their motorcycles.
Okay.
Wow.
But I think it's great. I think it's really good training. There's since you're in Michigan, Stony Creek just upgraded all their trails in the last couple of years. And so they spent a lot of money, it looks like, and made them really good. I went out last week with Eddie Kraft and Jeff O'Barry, some other guys, and they kicked my butt because I haven't been doing tons of cardio this year, but it's good to go out there. It's like, oh man, these are all new trails. I'm not used to this. So I'm like, which way are we going? I don't know.
So listen, go ahead,
Peter.
Well, so I got a question for you, because one of the things that someone who's listening to this podcast, and, they might be interested in biking. Some of them are business owners, some of them are just entrepreneurs, or they have a job or whatever. But I'm curious to see, because you're very successful when it comes to motorcycle racing and things like that. Have you been able to apply any of these success, quote unquote, secrets, the lessons out of the biking to the life? Like, what are some of the lessons that someone could apply to their life when it comes out of this?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's made me reach out into the business world. It's made me grow a lot, from sponsorship, reaching out to businesses for help with parts and discounts and services and money even. So like, it's made me grow and want to do this podcast. It's made me as I said before, start a business to help fund the whole racing program in the first place. So without racing, I probably wouldn't be running a business. I wouldn't have a podcast. I wouldn't have the blog, or, meet all these different people. Or be sponsored by 20 companies and be in a couple of different magazines. It's wild, all the different things that it's led me down. Unfortunately, motorcycle racing, and probably a lot of other racing sports, they're very expensive. A typical a hockey or soccer, NBA, NFL, NHL, pick a league. Minimum salary is hundreds of thousands of dollars as a rookie who's going to sit on the bench most of the time.
Yeah.
Minimum. So unfortunately, motorcycle racing has not developed yet to pay their athletes a minimum salary. Now, the purses are going up, and if you're a season-long competitor, there is some kickback that if you finish every event, like you practice, qualify, race, and in those instances, you do get some more money as a season-long competitor. They are trying to make it better, but just to get over that hurdle, to get in the game, you're talking $50,000 to $150,000 for a typical season. It's all pay to play. Unfortunately, I don't come from a rich family, which means I'm trying to do all these different things with the coaching, with the track marshal, with the business, with the podcast, trying to do anything possible in the motorsports area to make money. It's difficult, man. It's very hard, but I'm not giving up. I have not given up. And even when I couldn't afford to ride motorcycles, I got into the mountain bike racing. I'm like, I'm still going to race. I've got to find something. It's still two wheels, and it's made me better. It's amazing how far you can push the tires, even in the dirt. It's a different body position, but man, it's a big workout, and you learn every time you throw your leg over a motorcycle or a two-wheeled machine.
So let's just, I'm just curious, man. Like, so let's say you become a professional and you can afford to do the races. And by the way, I don't know anything about any of the finances involved with, what it, sponsorships or how much these guys make or what they don't make, but it sounds like it's not a lot. And so given the choice, if you could be a professional motorcycle racer, pay for all your races, and then make a little something, would you rather do that? Or would you rather just like have a job and you're pulling down, good money, 150 grand a year, say, and you just have the money and you don't have the motorcycle? Like, what I'm wondering is, like, which would you rather do? Like, not have a ton of money, but get to do all this stuff? Or would you rather have the money that might give you some other parts of life a chance to flourish? Or like, does that, I don't know if my question makes sense, man. I guess I'm wondering which one you'd choose.
Yeah, I would really, I don't want to have a ton of money. I just want to have enough money so that I can afford to race. And seems like a ton of money. So for my personal salary, I'd be happy with $30,000-$40,000, just enough I can go out to eat and like not have to worry about where my next meal is going to come from and get my rent paid and all this stuff. But I'm not looking to be a millionaire just to have tons of money in the bank. I just want to race my life. I just want to be racing cars and karts and open wheel stuff and motorcycles. Like to get into hill climbs. I don't know about hill climbs. That seems dangerous, but like, hair scrambles is what I meant to say. Hair scrambles and maybe some motocross. I'd love to get better at that, and flat track. Like I just have such a interest in all this.
Well, and it sounds like though, but it also sounds like the connections you're making and all these other things are kind of leading you down that path anyway. Like where, it sounds like, for you, doing what you love is more important than just having a whole bunch of money and not doing it.
For sure. I just love riding. I found my thing a long time ago. Some people never find their thing, but I feel like I found this thing that makes me happy. I like every time I go riding, everything else fades away. Like you can't focus on the problems of your life when you're riding a motorcycle at 40 miles an hour. It's a serious thing. And so it forces you to kind of get the distractions away and just focus on what's really in front of you in the moment and what's happening now.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude. That's awesome, man. Well, hey, Peter, do you have anything else, man? Because I know we're running out of time here.
No, I'm good.
This has been awesome, dude. I really, to our audience, you're the first motorcycle racer we've ever had on. And
notice he said first because he's not really a motorcycle racer.
and yet it struck me how many lessons that you've been able to share with us that have nothing to do with apparently on the surface with business or life, and yet all it takes is a couple questions and you realize there's such an incredible overlap here. And you shared so much awesome stuff here. I just really want to thank you for being on the show, brother.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. And I can't wait to watch it when it comes out.
And how do people learn more about what you're doing and about your podcast?
Yeah, head over to ericswanracing.com. I'm on all the social media. I don't think I'm on TikTok or OnlyFans yet, but just Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I got over 100 podcast episodes. You can watch it on YouTube, or you can listen to it on Spotify, Google, iTunes, Google Podcasts, all the places you can get audio podcasts.
Awesome, man. And that's it. For those of you who can't see, it's SWAHN, Swahn, SWAHN. Thanks a lot, brother. Appreciate it, man.
All right. Have a good one.
Bro, that makes you want to go racing motorcycles, doesn't it?
Really? Well, for you, yeah. I mean, but dude, man, one of the things that I've heard from him is there's so much when it comes to just getting on a bike and driving it, riding it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if you think about it, when it comes to life or business or anything, let's say I just want to do real estate, but there are so many different aspects to real estate, right? So how do you go and actually make it simple enough so you actually go and ride that bike and progress and things like that? And that's why I love how he's talking about it.
I know, man. Like, because as he's talking, all I could think about was like how many takeaway lessons there are for here. So let's talk about this. He said one of the things he said, he's like, look where you want to go. We talk about that all the time in life. You don't focus on the negative, you focus on the positive. By the way, looking where you're going is creating your vision. So I thought that was awesome, man. He said, I love that story he told right at the beginning about the sealer strips. He's like, by the time you're like, unless you panic, which by the way, you're already past the dangerous part, the sealer strip, you're fine. You're fine. And you freak out later and you try to fix it and you're safe. Like, and so that made me think like, man, how many times like, are we safe, but we freak out?
Right. I mean, think about that sealer strip that he was talking about. That can be applied to so many different things in our life and what he's focusing on. When he mentioned at one point, he goes, a lot of guys are looking at that strip and they're worrying about sliding off that, right? He's not looking there. He's looking at the whole other aspect of that pavement, that this is what he's focusing on. It's just a matter of passing through that strips, right? So where focus goes,
that's right,
energy flows, right?
And I think, the sealer strip is kind of like metaphorically the same as like a little blip in your life, a little thing that happens that if you focus on it and if you like dwell on it, it could throw you off. But in reality, it doesn't have to. Like you're already fine. Just continue what you're doing. Keep pushing. keep doing what you're doing. I thought that was awesome, man. You know what? Another thing that he said I thought was fascinating when I asked him about progress was he's like, yeah, you know, I get faster. I've learned I can get a lot faster by being harder on the brakes. And I'm like, boom, dude, getting faster by slowing down. Like, how interesting is that, man?
Yeah. And think about it. We have a lot of students that are coming into Life Under Coaching where we're talking about going 150,000 miles an hour. And there was conversation that I have some of my students like, dude, slow down.
Yeah.
Slow down in life, because that allows you to actually see what's around you. You know what I mean? Assess the situation differently and look from a different perspective. And what you end up doing is you're taking different action that's probably more beneficial than going 150,000 miles an hour.
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting, man. And like that was something that hit me upside the head. You know, another thing that I think that really resonated with me was he said how, you know, you can learn when you're getting passed. And I'm like, dude, wow. I never thought of that. Usually when somebody passes me at the track, I'm like, crap, like I'm going too slow and I don't even see what they're doing. Like, I'm just like, you know, and trying to follow them and see what they're doing. If they're better than you, you can learn from them right then and there. Where does this play out in our life, man?
Right. I mean, think about it. He's talking about being directly behind a guy and he's watching how he shifts, what he does, those kinds of things. So he's literally modeling the person who seems at that particular moment more successful than him. And he's modeling them to see, how do I do that? I would imagine that when he's following that guy for those 2-3 seconds that he was talking about, he literally starts doing exactly the same thing as the guy is doing, you know?
Yep.
So, and that helps him to grow, progress.
Well, man, that's happened to me too. You know, it's been interesting on the track. Like, so if I get passed, I'm like trying to catch the guy now because I'm like, oh no, you're not going to get past me. And like, you know, and I'll try and catch him and I'll kind of inadvertently, almost subconsciously try to copy him. But the same thing happens if I get behind somebody who's slower than me. I notice myself like doing the wrong things because I'm looking at this slow guy in front of me and he's on the wrong line and he's doing the wrong things and the wrong turn in. And like, it's so true, man, what you're looking at.
So to that point, it comes up, be careful who you pay attention to.
Yeah.
Who you watch. Because notice like when the guy who you just know, and he's kind of terrible, when you start thinking about him, looking at him, guess what? You're going to get worse.
Oh yeah. Yep. Right. Totally true, man.
One other thing that I love that he was talking about, when we were talking about, you know, what's going through your head kind of a thing. And he started talking about when I'm on this bike and I'm racing, I look around the environment. I'm very present to the environment. What's going on around me, like the guy around me, the pavement and where I'm approaching and all those kinds of things. So what he's not doing, he's not in his head, right, worried and wondering about all stuff. But also what allows him to see when he's doing that, allows him to see the picture of what is going on around him. And I think that is a big part of the success, because when you start looking from that perspective, like your quote unquote peripheral vision on life opens up and you're able to see the bigger picture. So, you know, to take that action or not to take that action, and you're able to progress in life a lot easier.
Yeah, dude, that's so true. And he's talking about, you know, being present. Like, it's such a thing that is lacking, I think, in so many people today because there's so many distractions and you just can't do that on a bike. And if you take that, actually, it's funny because one of my, I had a previous relationship and her brother actually is the one that got me into motorcycle racing back in the 90s. And one day I was talking with him and I'm like, hey, dude, what happened to your bike? He's like, oh, I hit a curb. I'm like, you hit a curb? He's like, yeah, I wasn't paying attention. Was just thinking about something else and just went straight into a curb. Like, he just went straight through a stop sign into a curb. I'm like, bro, you got to pay attention. And so take that presence, that state of mind where you're totally, you know, engrossed in whatever it is that you're doing, like, and it just has such a different effect on the outcome. You know, I thought that was really interesting. I also loved that he talked about this kind of like this idea of cross training, and he mentioned time in the seat. Like he said, time in the seat, doing it. This is where you get better. You know, you want to be a great copywriter, write more copy. You want to be great at marketing, study more marketing. Look at what others are doing for marketing, like become a student. Look at different parallel and tangential things that are involved. You know, if you want to be a great business owner, well, guess what? There's multiple things you got to be good at. Like, and you got to cross train to be a good business owner.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Another thing the lesson that I've learned out of this is he's very creative. And what I mean by that is he's constantly looking for different things that he can do that aligns and helps him become a better motorcycle racer. If you don't think about it, like yoga, who would have thought about doing this?
I know,
or
never,
that,
right?
you know, sweating or riding a regular bike through the mountains or wherever, or even being, was it the flagman he said at the racing?
Yeah.
I bet you that gives him a completely different perspective of riding when he's a flagman.
Oh, totally.
To see
corner
that
worker,
different, which probably helps him in his racing, right?
Oh, totally.
Because he sees that track from a different level. So he's being creative in ways to help him, to propel him in that area, the one area that he's going after.
That's a great point, man. You know, same thing. Like when I started judging bodybuilding shows, it gave me such a different perspective to see what, you know, from the way you walk out there to the way you look to the faces you make to the way you pose. Like it just gave me such a different appreciation. And now he's in a position, in this case, for instance, where he can see what are the best racers, the fastest guys, what line they're using, when are they turning, what are they doing, and like, so that's a great point, man. Like, and so I think, yeah, dude, I really enjoyed this episode. You got something else?
Yeah, I got one more that I've gotten out of this. Is this: if you think about it, towards the beginning of your venture, whatever you're going after, when you're like a newbie or you're just starting out, the amount of quote unquote errors or the amount of different things that you need to do are a lot bigger when you get up there into the expert level. And when you get your business to a higher level, now it's just a matter of a small percentages, right? The little tweaks that make a big difference. And so what I would encourage you guys listening to this particular podcast is when you're starting out, you have a lot more wiggle room to go, let's say, make a mistake or go after, to go full out. Like, look how he gets himself out of the comfort zone. He goes out there and does it and pushes himself a little bit. And when he gets up to the expert level, that's when it's the little tweaks that make a big difference, going out and doing yoga and things like that. But that was, I think, for me and other people, I think, listening, big lesson to be able to go and listen. Go after what you love doing. Go after what you really want to do in life, and you're going to get better at this. And eventually, look, sponsorships come in and whatever.
I know, man. Well, yeah, so let's wrap it up with that. Like, he said, you know, I'd be cool with making, you know, 30, 40 grand a year and racing motorcycles and coaching and having fun and doing what I love. And that's, you know, and that's, I'm not saying that's everybody's cup of tea, but like when you find that passion, like you may be faced with that choice. Like what's most important to you? What does your vision say is ultimately what it comes down to. Right. And it's just an awesome example, I think. And that's why, you know, I want him in the show. I thought there was a lot of lessons here.
And he's very clear on his vision.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So we hope you guys have enjoyed this as much as we did. If you did, we would love a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a share, leave a comment, you know, let us know, subscribe, you know, let us know if you have any questions for Eric, you know, put them in the private Facebook group. We have our Life in a Group. You guys should know this by now. You're hopefully in there by now. This is an awesome community of people that are all helping each other live their vision, pursue their vision, and do all the awesome things they want to do. As always, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time, everybody. Take care.